Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jannavalabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Gopi Jannavalabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Stottara Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Devamrita Swami Chai Purvarakchancha Bhaktachara Pravinata Parakta Vikaranya Misasaya Janma Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanamane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. the king of books.
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
Into
welcome.
5.
Welcome back.
Hey,
Hey, I think we're doing text 6 today. Is that your understanding?
I thought it was text 5.
Yeah,
So we read a couple of verses yesterday.
yeah, I think we did 5 yesterday. I'm not sure. Um, if someone else knows for certain, I'm pretty sure we did 5 yesterday.
Oh, because I already told, since I'm going to be the temporary Bhagavatam boss, I told Parameshwari that she's on text 6 tomorrow. And I don't want to upset her too much.
Well, you could do 5 again. Wouldn't hurt. I'm sure.
I think I will.
Yeah, and so I don't have text 5 prepared, but I'll scare it up quick.
Thank you. Hope that's all right. Since Sarvatma Prabhu was in ecstasy and enjoying several verses, I'll just continue from text 5 because Parameshwari, the Supreme Controller, will speak on text 6 tomorrow. Anyway, so many of these verses, of course, there's a very similar theme running through this first part of the 10th chapter. And we can talk about all of them until the cows come home. Speaking of which, why don't we see cows anymore? I guess that tradition has ended. It was nice to see a couple of cows in the morning. That's all right.
Very auspicious to see cows in the morning. It's very nice if you can look out your front door and see cows, according to Shastra. That's very auspicious. I'm right here, but I don't see cows in the morning. All right, so Srimad Bhagavatam, 5:10, 5.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, here you go.
Thank you, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 5 says, Samsargiko dosha eva nunam ikshasyapi sarvesham samsargikanam bhavitam arhatiti nishchitya nishamya kripana vacha raja rahugana upasita vridopi nisargena balatkrita isharuti tamanyur avispashta brahmatejasam jatavedasam ivaraja savrita matir aha. Word for word translation says samsargikaha, resulting from intimate association. Doshaha, a fault. This is a great little Sanskrit word. Those who know a little bit about Ayurveda know that we have tridosha, the vata, pitta, and kapha, which is very sentimentally described by Western people as air, fire, and earth. But it's really gas, bile, and mucus because it's a dosha, a fault. It's a problem to have a body. So this is a good word for us to know about, dosha. Sorry, eva, indeed, nunam, certainly, ekasya, of one, api, although, sarvesham, of all other, samsargikanam, persons associated with him. Hold on a second. Yeah. Bhavitum, to become. Arhati is able. Iti, thus. Nishchitya, ascertaining. Nishamya, by hearing. Kripana vachaha, the words of the poor servants who were very afraid of being punished. Raja, the king. Rahugana, upasita vridaha, having served and heard from many elderly sages. Api, in spite of, nisargena, by his personal nature, which was that of a kshatriya. Balat, by force, krita, done. Ishat, slightly. Utita, awakened. Manyuhu, whose anger. Avispashta, not being distinctly visible. Brahma Tejasam, his Jadbharat's spiritual effulgence. Jatavedasam, a fire covered by ashes in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Iva, like Rajasa Avrita, covered by the mode of passion. Matihi, whose mind, aha, said. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. King Rahugana could understand the speeches given by the carriers who were afraid of being punished. The carriers, of course, those who are carrying the palanquin of Maharaj Rahugana. I hope everybody knows what that looks like, probably. Palanquin is like a chair with two sticks kind of running along the side so that 4 or more people can carry it, which is how we do Rath Yatra in Melbourne, Australia, by the way, because in Melbourne, there are tram lines everywhere. You know, they have those electric tram cars that go through the roads, and so they're not very high up, maybe only 15 feet. And so you can't have a cart on wheels. And so we do Rath Yatra in Melbourne, Australia by putting Lord Jagannath on a palanquin. The devotees carry him through the streets. And it's wonderful. King Rahugana could understand the speeches given by the carriers who were afraid of being punished. He could also understand that simply due to the fault of one person, the palanquin was not being carried properly. Knowing this perfectly well and hearing their appeal, he became a little angry, although he was very advanced in political science and was very experienced. His anger arose due to his inborn nature as a king. Actually, King Rahugana's mind was covered by the mode of passion, and he therefore spoke as follows to Jadbharat, whose Brahman effulgence was not clearly visible, being covered like a fire covered by ashes. I hope everyone is also aware of this analogy. If you ever had a bonfire before, especially a large bonfire, and if you come back sometime later, perhaps the next morning, even though it might look like a pile of gray ashes, there's still hot coals underneath. And if you take a stick and stir it up, you'll see that there's still fire there. In fact, you can just light it again. So like a fire covered by ashes, Jadbharat's Brahman effulgence was not clearly visible. It was there, just below the surface. Purport. The distinction between Rajaguna and Sattvaguna is explained in this verse. Although the king was very upright and advanced in political science and governmental management, he was nonetheless in the mode of passion, and therefore, due to a slight agitation, he became angry. Jadbharat, despite all kinds of injustice endured because of his deaf and dumb display, remained silent by the strength of his spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, his Brahma Teja, his Brahman effulgence, was indistinctly visible in his person. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj Rahugana, because he's a king, even though he knows perfectly well political science and he's experienced, and actually said in the word-for-word translation that he learned from the sages, right? Upasita vridha. Upasita, like literally means to sit closely, to be very close and to learn. Having learned and heard from many elderly sages. Like the Upanishads, Upa means to be near, to sit near to the Lord by hearing Upanishads. And Upendra, Upa Indra, one who is near to Indra, the younger brother of Indra, Vamanadev. So Upasita Vrida, actually he learned from many great sages, he knew political science, he was experienced, but then why did he, for lack of a better word, act like a bit of a jerk here? That's the influence of the mode of passion. It somewhat covers the pure consciousness. He's not, at least he's not being described here as being in Sattva Guna. Prabhupada saying quite explicitly that he's in Rajaguna. So even though he knows better, it's like he can't help it. That's very typical and characteristic of the mode of passion. Even though I know better, I'm just going to do it anyway. So this is a great example of that, and one that we should learn from, because probably some of us in this room sometimes have that experience. Or even though we know, shouldn't talk like this, I shouldn't do that thing, I shouldn't interact with this person in this particular way, I'm just going to do it anyway. So this is the characteristic of the Rajaguna. He's an experienced person. He knows better. But his anger arose due to his inborn nature as a king, Kshatriya. What did it say here? It said somewhere in the word-for-word translation also. Anyway, it's his nature, not the nature of the soul. Excuse me. It's the nature of his body. It is covered by the mode of passion. It says in the translation, actually, King Rahugana's mind was covered by the mode of passion, and therefore he spoke as follows to Jad Bharat. So let's take a little moment to reflect on all the times that we know better, but we do worse. And recognize the mode of passion is still getting us, even after many, many years of attempted practice of Krishna consciousness. Somehow the mode of passion still gets us sometimes. We feel that desire welling up. If I just had this thing, then I would finally be happy. Sometimes we feel unlimited desire. That's clinically obstructive mode of passion. It's when you have unlimited desire. Asha pasha shatayar baddha. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, and mohajala samavrita, like a web of unlimited desire and longing, a web of illusion, being bound in this web of unlimited desire and longing. That's what it is like. Sometimes we get that daily experience when we submerge our consciousness into the best of the internet, which is not very good. We've done a great social experiment over the past 30 years, approximately. What would happen? Well, really not the past 30 years, because the social media thing only really picked up for about 20, 25 years. What would happen if everybody just downloaded all of their thoughts into this one pool, and we'll call it the internet, and you can just kind of swim in the shallow swamp of collective consciousness? What would happen? Now, the result of that experiment is pretty clear, is that it's mostly bad. It's mostly bad. to allow that stuff to enter into your brain. And it's very much Asha Pasha Shatayar Bhata. Krishna literally says a web of illusion, like the World Wide Web. That's what it used to be called. WWW, the World Wide Web of illusion. Get in there, swim in the shallow waters, the shallow waters of collective vanity, and allow ourselves to become affected with unlimited desire, asha, pasha, longing and aspiration. Oh, if I only had this, if I just got a little more of that, then I would finally be happy. Oh, look at all these people. They're obviously so happy, as I can see in this doctored and edited image or video. They're obviously so happy. And if I just had more of that, then I would finally get it too. The nectar for which I'm always anxious. So this is the symptom of the Rajaguna. We got to watch out for it because it's still affecting us. Probably. Hopefully most of us aren't affected by Tamaguna. Tamaguna, of course, is characterized by such illusion that one doesn't even have a sense of what to do or what not to do. Just no idea of right or wrong, no activity, lethargy, malice, and just pain and suffering. Most devotees, of course, we don't sink so low. But we can still be affected by Rajaguna, and so we should learn from this example given by King Rahugana, what it's like that even though you're maybe knowledgeable, even if you've learned from great sages, and that's all of us, still somehow it gets you. It gets you. So we're trying to cultivate the mode of goodness because it is not an obstruction to our spiritual progress. We should at least cultivate the mode of goodness. And that means a lifestyle of regulation, discipline, cleanliness, knowledge, truthfulness. All of these qualities are described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 18, text number something. I can't remember, but he says, Shamo Damas Tapa Shocham Kshantir Arjavam Evacha Gyanam Vigyanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Svabhavajam. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work, very characteristic of the mode of goodness. To be equipoise, Shamo, Damas, to be self-controlled, Tapa, austere, Shamo Damas Tapa, Kshocham, cleanliness. He actually mentions cleanliness twice. Kshamo Damas Tapa, Kshocham, Kshantir. Kshantir means to be tolerant. There's a lot to be tolerant of in this particular stage in Kali Yuga because it seems like everything is a thing, right? Everything is an issue. You're always wrong about something at this particular stage of Kali Yuga. You know, there's no more objective morality. It's all subjective. And so therefore you're always wrong about something. So you got to be tolerant. Kshantir Arjavam, purity. So there's cleanliness and purity. And then Gyanam, Vigyanam, thank you, knowledge and realization or wisdom. And then Astikyam, which is a very interesting word, which means religiousness. Asti is just, it just means like it is or he is. Astikyam, literally one who knows God. Astikyam. These are the qualities that we try to cultivate. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. It's the mode of goodness. And if we can cultivate mode of goodness by practicing these qualities, then at least our material existence is not so much an obstruction to our spiritual progress. Obviously, the goal is not to be in mode of goodness. The goal is to be fully surrendered to Krishna, to be unaffected by the modes at all. But if we're cultivating the mode of goodness, then at least it's not an obstruction. Just like if you're trying to catch a flight. Where did I just fly from? I was just visiting my family in California. California, man. And we had to take a flight. We got 6 a.m. from Reno, Nevada. So I had to drive from Tahoe at 3:15 a.m. with kids. Lord. And Sattvaguna is like when you're catching a flight from Reno to Salt Lake City to Philadelphia, but you get to the airport at 4:30 a.m. because you have your 6 a.m. flight. That's what it's like to be in Sattvaguna. Driving to Reno isn't that much closer to the end goal of flying to Philadelphia and then driving to State College. But if you're there, you're in the best position to catch that flight. Being in Rajaguna would be like waking up at 5, you have a 6 a.m. flight, and so you just jump in the car and you forget all your bags and you drive as fast as you can, and you might catch the flight and you might not. Rajaguna might be an obstruction to your spiritual progress. And being in Tamaguna is like you have a 6 a.m. flight and you wake up at 7. You're just not going anywhere on that particular day. So the modes of material nature, they can be an obstruction to our spiritual progress. But in Sattvaguna, at least, we're in the best position to progress spiritually. So that's why we cultivate Sattvaguna. But even that Sattvaguna can be a problem. I mean, for most of us, it'd be very good to cultivate Sattvaguna, generally. But even that Sattvaguna can be a problem. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 14th chapter, text number 6, Tatra sattvam nimalatvat prakashakam anamayam, that he says that this mode of goodness is nirmala, it's without fault, it doesn't have any flaws, nirmala, prakashakam, it's enlightening, like you really start to understand things clearly. When you have a lifestyle based in the mode of goodness, you can see clearly. All of the 9 gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. That means that with your senses, you actually interact with the world in such a way that you see the world as it really is. That's symptom of the mode of goodness. Tatra sattvam nimalatvat prakashakam anamayam, and it's free from sin. Sukha sangena badnati. But the problem is, the slight problem. I mean, generally, it's good for us to cultivate some mode of goodness so that we can not be obstructed so much by material nature. But even that mode of goodness has to be rejected eventually because there's a sort of bondage there. Sukha sangena badnati, jnana sangena chanaka. That one who's situated in the mode of goodness, they become bound, badna, bondage, literally, by a sense of happiness, superior happiness and knowledge. And this is something that actually we see with devotees a lot, myself included. So I apologize for being a little critical here, but hopefully we can see an impetus to improve in our bhakti by considering that, after we come to Krishna consciousness for some time, we kind of get our material life in order. It's like the side effect, devotional service, is that you learn how to eat properly and sleep properly, and your relationships kind of improve, and you just get a general balance. And there's a sort of peacefulness and a happiness that comes from that. But that's bondage. And we see that bondage in play when there's a devotional service that we won't do because it disturbs that peace and happiness I get from my very balanced, equipoise and healthy lifestyle that has come as a side effect of my Krishna consciousness. For example, it's kind of hard to reach out to non-devotees and to contact them, to interact with them, to communicate with them, to try to encourage them in Krishna consciousness. It's a little hard because they're cuckoo. They are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And they'll say things that are wild and challenging, and sometimes it can really be disturbing. And so, if we're thinking like, well, I don't want to do that because I've got a little peace going on in my life, and having to interact with others who are not so Krishna conscious disturbs my peace, then that's the symptom of the mode of goodness as being like a type of bondage. Sukha sangena. I've got my happiness. my happiness because I've made peace with the material energy, with the sattva guna. I've found a nice, comfortable situation here. If I have to do some service which disturbs that comfort, then I'm not into that sort of devotional service. In this way, we miss an opportunity to actually grow spiritually in the love of Krishna. We miss an opportunity to please the Lord. So maybe this is a common challenge for a lot of us. Not just Sankirtan, I'm just giving one example. There can be many, many services that we're not so attracted to because, I like just being comfortable. And in the mode of goodness, you have a sort of comfort with the material energy. I got my regimen, I got my routine. I don't want anybody to disturb my routine. Oh, what's that? There's a service available, but it's only at this particular time. But then I'd have to miss out on my toilet time. Or, oh, that's always the time that I eat. I just have to have my breakfast at exactly 9:17. And, if there's some service at that time, well, then I can't do devotional service. Then this way, that mode of goodness is actually like a type of bondage. I'm not talking about anybody who's here, but we also see that a lot with devotees who get really into astrology, if I may be a little more risky this morning. It's no one that I know at Gita Nagari, but I have known some devotees who are just like, it's like you have to do everything according to the exact TT of the planet, the particular position of the moon in this house is, this planet is in this house right now, and so I can't do this particular devotional service. It's like, come on. Our goal is to please Krishna, not just to have a peaceful material existence. So that's why Krishna says that this mode of goodness is like a bondage. Sukha sangena bandhati. I don't want my happiness to be disturbed, and I won't do any particular service which interrupts my peaceful routine, then it's bondage, and it's a problem. And jnana, also, there's a type of knowledge that comes in this mode of goodness, whereby, I know better than other people. There's like a pride that comes from that. So I don't want to associate with low-class people and try to give them Krishna consciousness. So that's a type of bondage that comes from the mode of goodness. We got to watch out for it. It's not our goal to just be in sattva guna, but to please Krishna. To please Krishna and to rise above the modes of material nature. As Krishna says also in that 14th chapter, sagunan samatityaitan, right? What is that verse? Hold on. It's in my brain. I just got to dig down and find it. Bhakti. Hold on, give me a second. Mam chayo avyabhicharena. There we go. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That's what we're really going for. Is that when one engages in the service of the Lord, Krishna says, my service, avyabhicharena, like exclusively engaged in service to me, saguna samatityaitan, then one rises above the influence of the modes of material nature, brahma bhuyaya kalpate, and attains Brahman quality, right? Bhakti yogena sevate. Gotta have service in bhakti yoga. Then we cross over the modes of material nature. That's the end goal. Of course, for a lot of us, cultivating a bit of sattva guna is an improvement on our typical rajaguna. But ultimately, avyabhicharena bhakti yoga, seva. Unalloyed, uninterrupted, unfettered devotional service to Krishna. Whatever Krishna wants. That's the bhakti attitude. Whatever Krishna wants. Krishna wants me to get on my hands and knees and scrub a toilet. That's the service that I want to do. Then we cross over the influence of the modes of material nature, and there's no consideration. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. These things are ultimately meant to be renounced so that we can just become a purity of Lord Krishna and attain a Brahman quality, which is what is being described here about Jada Bharata. Jada Bharata, he has a Brahman effulgence, a Brahma Teja. Of course, he's not an avatar. He's not Shaktivesh avatar. He's Jiva. He's a person, but he has Brahma Teja. And Krishna says the same for all of us. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One who engages in unalloyed, uninterrupted devotional service with love, rises over the influence of the material modes, and has Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. They have a Brahma Teja, similar Brahman effulgence. Spiritual intensity. That's what that means, Brahma Teja. Spiritual intensity. Doesn't necessarily literally mean like some light glowing from your body, although that would be cool. But it means spiritual intensity. Tejas literally means an intensity. And that you can see in some people, right? That's a large part of the reason why many of us came to Krishna consciousness. We met someone with Brahma Teja and you just go, wow, this guy or girl is intense with spiritual energy. I want some of that. So that is our goal in Krishna consciousness, to rise above the modes by unalloyed devotional service and have buzzing spiritual intensity. And that spiritual intensity is very effective in convincing others to be Krishna conscious, as is described in that great story about Lord Chaitanya, who meets the Mayavadi sannyasis headed by Prakashananda Saraswati. You may recall, I'll just finish with this little story about Brahma Tejas. You may recall that Lord Chaitanya was in Varanasi, just enjoying the ecstasy of chanting and dancing with so many devotees. And Varanasi was famous for having so many Mayavadi sannyasis who were very critical and analytical, and they would read their Vedanta Sutra and just kind of criticize everybody for doing it wrong. A tale as old as time. And some devotees were telling Lord Chaitanya about this criticism of him, Chandrasekhar Acharya, and I can't remember the other one now. Hare Krishna. Anyway, Lord Chaitanya wanted to show his mercy to those Mayavadi sannyasis and agreed to meet them for a bit of a chat. But he went there in a very humble attitude. He sat down in the place where people wash their feet because they weren't wearing shoes so much. They would wash their feet and then sit down, and manifested his Brahma Teja started to glow. And these other sannyasis were just like, wow, look at this person. Here we are, we're studying Vedanta, trying to become Narayan. We even refer to each other as Narayan. But here, you've already done it. He's actually Narayan. He's here. And so, anyway, what transpired after that is just such a remarkable and amazing conversation. Highly recommend everybody read it. But the point is, Lord Chaitanya also demonstrated Brahma Tejas is an effective preaching method. If you have real spiritual intensity, then people are affected by it. And that's what we're going to hear in this 10th chapter of the 5th canto, and in subsequent chapters, actually, that Bharata is going to be affected by the spiritual intensity. I'm sorry, Maharaj Rahugana is going to be affected by the spiritual intensity, the Brahma Tejas of the Bharata. It's going to recognize, wow, this person is a genuine spirit. Even though externally I thought he was just that deaf, dumb, blind boy playing pinball. He's actually a great sage. And so similarly, if we want to be effective in sharing Krishna consciousness, in others of the value of being Krishna conscious, serving Krishna, then we need a little Brahma. We don't want some Brahma Jada. Jada means like, oh, I lost my internet connection. I wonder if you all can hear me. Anyway, We don't want Brahma Jada. Like my internet connection right now is Jada. It's low. We need Brahma Teja, intensity. And then we can have an effect on us. So, to recap, how do we get that Brahma Tejas, that Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate? By devotional service, obviously. The answer to all questions is devotional service, but Krishna specifically says, Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityai Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Unalloyed devotional service, not service mixed with the modes of passion. Well, I'll do devotional service, but only if I gain something from it. That's the service in the mode of passion. I'll do service, but only if I get some recognition. Only if they're going to be talking about me. Or I'll do some service, but only if it, only in spite of enemies. That was my original mission when I came to Krishna consciousness originally. Because I had this girlfriend who, she took a different spiritual path and was like, I'll show you. That's devotional service in the mode of ignorance, in spite of my enemies. So not service mixed with the modes, not service with some ulterior motive. Service which is unalloyed, just whatever Krishna wants, whatever Krishna needs, whatever the spiritual master requests of me. That's what we aspire for. That's what we long for. And then we rise above the modes of material nature and rise above even that bondage of the mode of goodness and attain Brahman, Brahma Teja, spiritual intensity, like Jad Bharat, Maharaj Bharat. Hare Krishna. So I think I finish there, a little foray into the intricacies of the modes of material nature and how it relates to this wonderful story of Maharaj Rahugana being transformed by the character, by the spiritual intensity of Bharat. Any comments or questions, retorts on some of this stuff? Hope I haven't insulted anybody too much who has a comfortable Sattvaguna lifestyle. I mean, it's good to have a comfortable Sattvaguna lifestyle, but we also got to give it up. Got to give it up and just surrender to what Krishna needs, what Krishna wants. Otherwise, we're bound. Okay, so I guess everyone is fully satisfied in Krishna consciousness, which is a great success for all of us. That means Maya is losing today. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for participating in Srimad Bhagavatam class. Tune in next time to hear Her Grace Parameshwari. Oh. Are you speaking, Tarka Prabhu?
I'm thinking that I hope to, but you
Please.
mentioned Parameshwari. She said she has a question, so I'm waiting for her to express it. But
servant of the Supreme Controller, Parameshwari, please go ahead.
I am offended. I have a comfortable situation in Tamaguna, and I don't appreciate these sorts of comments.
I'm sorry, Prabhu.
But
you're definitely not in Tamaguna. That's exactly what I would say.
But Prabhu, what about my psychophysical nature? You're telling me that if I just surrender to the instructions of my spiritual master, I can transcend the modes of material nature, which by whose influence I have a particular psychophysical nature, and you're telling me that basically all that business is just going to evaporate because I surrender to my spiritual master?
Yes. It's the duty of the spiritual master to know how to engage the disciple properly. Prabhupada writes that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And because most people aren't fully surrendered, the guru or the guru's representatives can engage a person in service according to their psychophysical nature. Sure. We should at least know the goal is to transcend the psychophysical nature. Lord Chaitanya says, Gopi Bharti, what does he say? Kiba, what is that verse? I'm not a Shudra, I'm not a sannyasi. How does that one start? We used to do it all the time in LA. Who can find that verse? You know, it says, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not a Vaishya, Kshatriya, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a
Kiva Biprab Kiva Nyase Sudra Kenenoi, Ye Krishna Tatveta Se Guru Hoy.
Yeah, that's a similar one. Yes, I was thinking the other one where he says, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anadasa. I can't remember the first lines. But eventually we have to kick off that psychophysical nature. We can't make it the all in all. It's actually a dosha. It's a fault. It's a problem. Your psychophysical nature is a problem that we deal with, remain attached to, and keep. Well, it's my psychophysical nature to be a Brahma and to just think that I'm better than everybody and to write books about Varnashrama, which is the surefire way to tell everybody that I'm better than everybody else. Hare Krishna. You eventually got to give that up and become a humble servant of the Vaishnavas. Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I mean, what does that mean, Dasa Dasa Anudasa? It means serve the servant of the servant of the servant. If you're thinking you're some elevated person because of your age or your gender or your ethnicity or whatever, then you can't come anywhere close to what Lord Chaitanya is talking about. Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. So the spiritual master or the spiritual master's representatives can help us to deal with that dosha problem of our psychophysical nature. But at least we should focus on the end goal and know that the goal is to totally rise above that sort of stuff and just serve all the devotees and serve Krishna with love, whatever is needed, whatever is wanted. So you're not, of course, you're playing devil's advocate here, but you're not wrong. The psychophysical nature is important, but not nearly as important as just being fully surrendered to Krishna's service. At least we should always remind ourselves of what is the end goal. If we spend more time talking about being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or whatever, and not enough time talking about being fully surrendered to Lord Krishna, then we'll forget. And then Krishna consciousness will just become Hinduism. You know, like so many other religious traditions, they forgot the goal of love of God. And it's just about, political conquest or prosperity theology or whatever, because that's what they chose to talk about more than the ultimate goal of love of God. I mean, God is the universal dharma. It's there in their scriptures also. But instead, they're just like talking about who's allowed to have sex with who. They stopped talking about the goal. So at least let us always remember in every conversation we have about Krishna consciousness that the goal is pure love of God, Krishna prema. Mam chayo avyabhicharena. That's why Krishna says it, 100 times in Bhagavad Gita. Avyabhicharena. Unalloyed devotional service. Keep reminding us. So let's remind each other also. Another point, as I heard my spiritual master say, is that we should always talk about the highest goal, because we should always discuss the highest standard of devotional service. The lower standard happens automatically. We don't really need to judge it. It'll just happen anyway. So we should encourage the highest standard. Avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. What do you think, Tarka Prabhu? Do you agree? Or am I being insensitive to everyone's particular psychophysical bondage?
Well, these are not mutually exclusive concepts. You can be insensitive and still actually say the right thing, but you're not insensitive, and I agree with you.
Thank you, Tarika Prabhu. It's always great to have you in our corner in the fight against Maya. Hare Krishna. Parameshwari is above the feeling of happiness and peacefulness to engage in devotional service wholeheartedly. Parameshwari, you already have that inclination from day one. Sankirtan is especially good for that. And I'm not trying to be pushy here, but it's a really good way to get out of your comfort zone and to do service which is challenging and to be more concerned with the well-being of others than yourself. So when we try to connect with people and share Krishna consciousness with them, that's what we should be feeling. We should be feeling a little challenged. And it requires such a variety of skill. It's just, it's just transcends being in a particular varna or even ashrama. So I hope that you will continue to do that for many, many lifetimes because you're very good at it also. Krishna, one thing. There are many ways that we can rise above that feeling of happiness and peacefulness. You just ask your spiritual master, say, Gurudev, I'm just a little too comfortable. Can I have some more challenging devotional service? And I'm sure he'll do his big belly laugh and give you some service which is a little harder. But yeah, we should always be progressive. We should always be challenged in Krishna consciousness, not comfortable and complacent. We should be comfortable knowing that we are protected by the Lord. We should be comfortable, knowing that we have the insurance policy of Vaishnava Sangha. We should not hope for a comfortable body situation. I mean, what a waste of time. This body is meant for deterioration anyway. Let's get out of comfort zone and do more service for Krishna, which is challenging. Sometimes getting out of the comfort zone means serving with devotees who are challenging us. It's too easy to just make the excuse that, well, I don't like that devotee, and so I'm not going to do devotional service. My God. So tired of hearing that. Excuse me. For venting a little bit. Well, this person said that, and this thing happened, 10 years, so now I'm not served. Okay, but get out of your comfort zone. Do some service for Krishna, even though it's a little challenging. Doesn't mean we have to torture ourselves or do something which is unhealthy or be around a person that's like actually abusive. But just because, we don't get along with everybody doesn't mean you should just quit devotional service. I can't do it because, so many years ago, this person said something that was insensitive. I mean, that might be significant. There might be some opportunity to resolve it with effective communication, but any time that we don't do devotional service is Maya. Whatever the excuse is, that I'm not going to do devotional service, whether it's because of this person or it's because of the weather or because of whatever reasons we have. If I don't do devotional service, it's Maya. Devotional service can be done in any situation, any circumstances. And if someone who does it wholeheartedly, avyabhicharena, then they rise above the influence of the modes anyway. Hare Krishna. I think I've rambled long enough. Thank you, dear devotees, for participating. How to overcome that mentality. Parameshwari. Do more Sankirtana. Get out in the street and do book distribution. It's been a little while, right? You and me both. Haven't done books in a long time. But since you're bringing it up, the semester is starting August 21st. And we'd like to begin the semester. Oh, sorry. But I will say that we do need your help because the semester is beginning and we do the involvement fair. We're going to do it on Wednesday, the 23rd. It's a really good day to distribute books and flyers and get everybody to come to the center and to the farm. She says, how to overcome that mentality of feeling unqualified to speak about the highest standard? Well, we just referenced Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, he's saying in this verse, this is the distinction between Rajaguna and Sattvaguna. He's saying in this verse that Jad Bharat has this Brahma Tejas. Krishna saying, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. We reference the higher authority. Krishna has said this is what we have to do. It's not me saying, it's not Yasodeva just being a jerk. Or using Bhagavatam class as his therapy session. It's not just me taking advantage of everybody for my own therapy, but Krishna has said, Mam chaya vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So let's try to do it. We can speak about the highest standard if we reference the highest authority, Lord Krishna. And admit humbly, I'm trying to attain that standard too. All right. Thank you, dear devotees, for participating in Bhagavatam class. Thanks for listening. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Will there be darshan of the Lord? It's been a little while also since we've had the darshan. Sometimes, I guess the devotees in the temple, of course, got a lot going on. So if you can't put the computer there, the laptop to see the Lords, we totally understand. But it is nice if it does happen.
It may yet happen.
It may yet, okay.
But one never knows. Anything is possible.
This is great. We get the feeling of separation from the Lord and longing for perfection. It's one of the most powerful spiritual emotions. Lala Samai Prarthana, longing and longing. Will I get to see the Lord? Will I be so fortunate today? So every morning, the pujaris get to leave us in that ecstasy of Lala Samai Prarthana. Will I see the Lord today? It's all wonderful. Krishna consciousness is all wonderful from start to finish. Jai, Hare Krishna.